on the show, and we are discussing how you can plan your big day, which is your wedding day. Now, it's only while I'm speaking to Yanti and Usman that I'm realizing how much work actually goes into planning a wedding, because I've never been involved in planning one. I've just attended a few, but I'm sure that you're realizing how much goes into this process as well. So right now, we're going to get down into the wedding banquet and the do's and don'ts of food at a wedding. Now, is there anything that you specifically recommend for your clients? The usual styles are buffet and sit down, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what do you prefer at a wedding?
Well, I mean, most of them go for a buffet because it depends on the number of people they're having as well for the wedding. Like, if it's, I mean, there are certain weddings there are like more than 200 people, then they go for a buffet, because sit down, if it's a sit down dinner, it takes, or sit down event, it takes a lot of time, you know, to serve the certain amount of courses. So they have to look at the practicality of it as well. Maybe if it's about 50 people to 100 people, and depending on the client's request, if they go for a sit down menu, then it's fine. But it also, you know, we have to look at the timing as well, if there is any formalities, you know, speeches, presentations, things like that. So yeah, mainly people go for buffets. It's easy. I mean, it's more food there. I mean, if you have a good menu, and end of the day, if people, like, you know, your guests, you know, actually tell after the wedding, you know, inform the couple or the parents that they had a good meal. I mean, that's a plus point. Yeah,
exactly. Yes. Because see, most of the time when we have people coming from abroad who wants to have their weddings here, most of the weddings they attend there are sit down with sit down dinners. So because Western weddings compared to Sri Lankan weddings are of smaller numbers, maybe of a maximum of about 100 or 150 people, maybe not even 150. But here we see a minimum of 150, and maximum could go up to 500, 800, depending. Yeah. So what happens is sometimes they don't really think how practical it is. With that kind of numbers, yeah, it's a bit difficult to do a sit down menu, and also you have to think about the guests you are inviting. Will they enjoy it? Because Sri Lankans are always used to have a lot of food, and
I mean, lot of variety,
and exactly, yes. And to see a lot of variety and to have variety, and because if it is a sit down, I mean, it's all already plated, and it just comes to you, and you may have a choice of fish, chicken or seafood, something like that. So choices are limited, and most of the guests here will not really enjoy it. But if your guests are from overseas, and if they are mostly foreigners, then yes, we would always recommend go for a sit down. And also it depends again on the hotel you choose, because certain hotels are very equipped and also very well trained in this kind of service. So it is actually a service that requires a lot of training, because us being in the hotel industry, we know how it works. So not every hotel would be really geared for it. I mean, they would do it, but then there would be delays, and at the end of the day, you might be disappointed. So we advise them on these little things, and yeah, because at the end of the day, everyone wants to have the best. But if it is a local Sri Lankan wedding, it's always advisable to go for a buffet.
And what are the foods that you would say don't have on the menu? These foods are going to cause some sort of disaster somewhere during the night. Just keep them out of the menu. Are there any foods like that you say just better to leave them out of the menu?
It's like this. We couldn't say a particular type of food, but in general now most of the Sri Lankans, irrelevant whether it's a Sinhalese wedding or a Catholic wedding, most of the time they try to leave out beef. Because people have actually got away from it, and also even though, okay, maybe say it's a Catholic wedding, but still there may be invitees who would not have it, and so likewise you know, that kind of food. And then again, when you say food now, when you serve alcohol, people want to have bites, and especially parents say, okay, let's have maybe devil chicken or, you know, something like that coming to the tables along with the liquor. But we actually advise not to do that, because if you're having a buffet, you have a huge spread out there, and what people do is they fill themselves on this, and then they miss out on the best part of the food, right? So maybe go with some light things like mixtures, cashews, maybe almonds, different kind of nuts for during your liquor time, because that will maybe just last for about an hour, 1.5 hours, and leave the best for last.
Of course. And you mentioned alcohol. Now,
Yeah.
sometimes alcohol and wedding guests can be a bit of a disastrous combination if not handled properly.
Yeah.
So, how can you keep your wedding guests happy, safe, and sober, and still serve a bit of alcohol at a wedding and have a good time?
It's always best to we would say go for table service, because having an
The open bar concept is not the best.
not the best if your guests are a bit on the partying side, because what will happen is the moment the bar is open, most of the gents will be flocking around it, and then what we generally observe is the ladies are left inside the ballroom. And if the bar is situated out, or positioned out or in a corner, most of the gents are around that around that area, right? So more than that, what we see is with the open bar, the control, there's a bit of problem in controlling. Yeah.
So better to go for
it's always best to go with maybe
the
3 or
service at the
4
table.
rounds of table service, and then finish it off.
So, the coordination that's needed for a wedding is immense. So, how many rehearsals do you recommend the wedding party and the guests, main people involved, should go for before the day of the wedding?
Normally, we always keep the hotel discussion for the last. So maybe about 2 weeks before, once we go to the hotel and once we finalize the details with the hotel, what we do is we do an entire event plan, as in for the day, and then we ask the couple and whoever the retinue, the families, a day when they are free, and if it's a church ceremony or if it's a forest ceremony including the reception, we just run through the entire day. Like we take a day and then run to the entire event. If we can, 1 day is enough to do that.
Oh, I see.
But it's mainly the if they see the sequence of the schedule, as in the agenda for the day, then it's
They
more
get a clear
clear.
understanding.
They have a clear understanding then.
So we'll be going into a another video clip very shortly. But let me just ask you. You spoke earlier about Sri Lankan brides, and actually, by now the entire retinue changing their clothes often. So is this a trend that you see becoming really big in the future, and not just wedding and going away, but so many different costume changes happening throughout the wedding?
Yeah, but I would say now we actually see brides not doing that, because what happens is even we personally would advise not to go for a going away change, because you have a limited number of hours here, 4 to 5 hours, and you plan for 1.5 years ahead for this maximum of 5 hours. So try to enjoy your day, have your meals, because when you have a going away change, the couple hardly eats. They don't get to eat. It's quite tiring. You're dressed from quite early, you have about 3 hours of photographs, and then you come to the hall and you feel tired and you need to have food, but then when you have a going away change, you have to rush that as well, because you need about 45 minutes to an hour for the change and a few photos and coming back to the hall. So brides have actually moved out from that, but then we still do get requests. In fact, this month too, we are handling a wedding where the bride will be going into 3 changes.
Wow.
So a Candian.
So this is again during the 4 to 5 hour time
Of course,
frame.
yes. So to a Candian, an Indian, and finally a Western, and so will the bridesmaids. So well, that is how they like it.
And we have a small video clip ready on wedding attire. So let's go to that, and you can give me your opinions on the video after we get back.
How to dress for a wedding. The bride and her dress should be the center of attention on her wedding day. Follow this advice to make sure you are not the one standing out in the crowd. You will need location of the wedding, weather forecast, and an invitation to a wedding. Consider the location. The reception venue will provide you with a clue as to how formal the wedding will be. A country club or hotel calls for formal attire, whereas a beach or outdoor wedding calls for more casual dress. Watch the weather forecast, especially if the wedding or reception is being held outside. Steer clear of high-heeled shoes for outdoor weddings. The heels will sink into the sand and lawn. Read the invitation carefully. It may mention casual, proper or black tie attire requested. Redefine your understanding of casual attire. Jeans are never recommended. A cotton suit or sundress for women and khaki pants and a shirt with a collar for men are as casual as you should go. Consider the time of the reception. Morning or early afternoon weddings are more casual than dinner time or evening ones. Do not wear white to a wedding. You never want to be mistaken as the bride or take the attention away from her. Did you know veils were originally worn by ancient Greeks and Romans to protect the bride from evil spirits?
So this is how a guest can come prepared for the wedding, because you can't control what a guest wears. So here on Good Morning Sri Lanka, we're helping those who are planning on attending the wedding to know a bit about how you can dress for the wedding. But do you have instances like that where guests start walking in white and takes a bit of attention away from the bride?
Of course, there have been situations, but I mean, everyone loves to attend weddings and look beautiful. So, well, no one could say anything about it. But, well, there are little things that people actually should take to consideration. I would say, actually, when you're attending a church ceremony, there's like, I mean, a dress code that you should follow, not that you should, I mean, an exact dress code, but since you are entering a place of worship, you have to respect that, because I mean, you wouldn't enter a temple wearing clothes too revealing. So likewise, even though it is a wedding, so people should dress, because we actually face a bit of these problems when it comes to such ceremonies where you know, even the brides, they would like to have the bridesmaids' dresses a bit revealing, maybe strapless or with thin straps, but on that day we have had actually a bit of problems from these institutes where they should not dress. So these little things should be taken to consideration. I mean, if you have a dress like that, maybe you could have a shawl, or you could have a bolero used for that occasion, and then when you come in for the reception, you could take it off and come in your evening dress.
So you have to be
mindful of the places that you're attending. It can even be the guests or even the retinue. It applies to everybody. And also yeah, like we saw in the video, it says about heels going in the grass.
That's sad, because people have beach weddings nowadays.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. So when it is it is a beach wedding, and your dress code, of course, definitely has to be informal, casual. So you have to make it a point to mention it on your invitation, because otherwise, what people will do is, I mean, it's a wedding, that is their mindset, and they would come all dressed up, and there'll be a lot of inconveniences. So these little things, if you are going into these kind of themes, garden weddings, then you have to be mindful of these. Yes.
So that's something you should mention in your invitation. Straight away, mention the dress code and say this is the location. Yes,
depending on the location. I mean, if it is a ballroom, wedding held in a ballroom or a hotel, then it's just normal formal attire. But if it is in some other location, then yes.
So on that note, we are going in for a small commercial break, but do stay here with us, because we'll be back with themes for your wedding day.